A lot of people say controller is the hardest role to climb into high elo with, but carrying as a controller is a lot easier than it's made out to be. So that's why in today's guide, we will be showing you how to dominate your ranked games as controller in under 10 minutes. Now, what makes this role so important? Controllers are the only role that can manipulate the way the game is played entirely. This makes them the most essential piece of any team they are a part of. Controllers are what will make or break a team in most cases. Not having a controller on the team can be a huge detriment. Now, let's talk about what controllers are actually in the game and a bit about what they bring to the table. Let's start off with Viper, the Queen of Toxin. Through her Toxic Wall and Poison Orb, she is able to deny enemy vision. She's particularly powerful on maps with long and wide sight ranges because of her wall. Her Snake Bite is a Molotov, which will make anyone vulnerable from walking into it. Viper's ultimate Viper's Pit lays out a massive toxic pit that controls a large area of the map. Up next, we'll talk about Omen, the King of the Shadows. Omen is unique among controllers due to his ability to teleport using Shrouded Step and his near-sight ability, Paranoia. These abilities can allow him to play like a duelist at times. Omen also gets 2 smokes every round, with one regenerating every 40 seconds after use. His ultimate allows him to teleport anywhere, so it's powerful for rotating. Moving on to Brimstone, his kit is pretty simple. Brimstone can start a round with 3 smokes ready to use, which means you get a lot of options tactically. He has a Stim Beacon, which increases ally move speed and fire rate, a Molotov, and an Orbital Strike, which will rain down hell on anyone inside of it. Now, if you're looking for a purely tactical take on controllers, Astra is your girl. She gets 2 smokes, a suck, a concuss ability, and a huge wall that cuts the map in half. Harper is a more on-the-fly controller. His abilities can be used very impromptu, so he's good for explosive team compositions or with another controller. Let's talk about the best controllers for each map quickly. For Ascent, the best are Omen and Astra. For Lotus, the best are Astra and Harbor. For Pearl, the best are Astra, Viper, and Harbor. For Haven, the best are Omen and Astra. For Fracture, the best are Brimstone and Viper. For Split, the best are Omen and Astra. For Bind, the best are Viper, Astra, and Brimstone. But keep in mind, you can make anything work in Valorant. And for everything else you need to climb ranks and improve fast, there's SkillCapped.com. We take the highest priority skills to climb ranks fast, such as aiming, and then break it down into a step-by-step course that's easy to understand. You'll not only learn the basics such as crosshair placement and clearing angles properly, but also more advanced concepts like getting more multi-kills and repositioning. That's not all though, as every week we release 6 brand new VOD reviews where Radiant coaches teach you how to climb out of the exact rank you're stuck in. And if you're looking for more personal instead, then we got you covered with our new one-on-one coaching at our SkillCapped Discord. All this seemed too good to be true? Well, don't worry, we're backed by a rank up guarantee. If you don't significantly improve while actively using SkillCapped, then you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and get the rank you've always wanted. Alright, now let's get into today's guide. The role of controller is responsible for manipulating the battlefield and controlling the enemy team's movements. The strategic significance of a controller lies in the fact that they are vital for obtaining map control, site executions, defending post plants, obtaining information, and overall just being the most crucial supportive role on the team. Since controllers are so important in all these scenarios, you have to communicate and position yourself properly to get into those situations. Communication is the most important part of playing controller. Your utility is the most important on the team, so it's crucial to let your team know how to use it and play around it. You should practice doing this even if your team doesn't talk back to you. It's just a great habit to build. As for positioning on defense, a lot of controllers should play a central position on the map, especially on Omen, Brimstone, and Harbor, since their abilities are limited by range. On attack, you should never entry. If anything, you should be in the back setting your team up for success while they push in, or whatever the strategy happens to be that round. One thing I do on controller is ask my team if they want my utility used in any way, so if someone has an idea, we can create healthy communications with the team. Now, controllers are able to control the enemy's vision, so controlling that in the right way is vital to their role. Generally, smoking off choke points is the best way to go about using smokes on controller. For example, if you take A on Ascent, the main choke points you want to smoke off are Tree and Heaven. And while we're talking about smokes, let's talk about how to properly throw a smoke. The edge of your smoke should always line up with the edge of a wall. This makes the smoke a lot easier to hold and doesn't allow enemies to lurk around the sides of it. Controllers make or break a team. If you have a controller playing their role wrong, it hurts your team a lot. If they die first, throw smokes wrong, or don't communicate, it becomes super hard to win. All controllers are different, yet the concept of their role remains the same. But in general, you should use your ability to take control or stop the enemy team from gaining map control. The best way to stop the enemy team from gaining map control is by smoking off their main choke points. Let's look at a round on Ascent from Marved, who currently plays for Sentinels. We will only be looking at how he uses his smokes at the start of the round. As the round starts, Marved throws this one way on the edge of A main. This smoke delays the enemy team and allows Marved some free map control. But the enemy team isn't going A off of his teammates' communication, so he immediately smokes the main choke point on B. Notice how Marv's smokes are fast, deliberate, and cut off choke points effectively. With these smokes, Marv delayed the enemy team, cut off choke points, and got map control. Now let's talk about some common controller strategies on specific maps. On Ascent, Omens tend to blind a choke point immediately. His blind covers the entirety of most choke points on Ascent, so it's powerful. On Fracture, a lot of Brimstone's plays line up in post-plants, since the lineup spots are pretty safe and easy to get to after planting. On Lotus, people will usually use Astra or Harbor's utility on the main choke points at the start of a round. This usually happens at A or C. On Bind, you should normally fight for some map control like Showers or Long B, and aid your team in doing so with your utility. On Haven, Omen players will usually position themselves to have a lot of impact with their blind. For example, I'll usually walk down A long on attack and blind A short for my team as they come up. On Pearl, Astra is the queen of lurking. Placing your utility for your team, using it, and then lurking through middle or art is really strong with her. And finally on Split, Omen's blind can be used much like on Haven or Ascent, as it covers almost the entirety of every choke point. We talked about one-way smokes a bit when we looked at Marved, but you can create a one-way on almost anything that has an elevated ledge. Some common one-ways include A main on Ascent, A site, and C site on Haven, the long plant for A on Pearl, and many more that you can come up with yourself even. Now, what are some do's and don'ts with controller? What you don't want to do is die first, communicate poorly, or use utility pointlessly. What you do want to do is use your utility efficiently, communicate your intentions with your utility, and you really shouldn't be dying with utility available in most situations. Also, you're playing controller, not a duelist, so there's no need to go dying first, especially if your smokes aren't up yet. Another don't do is just spamming your utility at the enemies. Your utility should always have a purpose, and if you can't think of a reason you're using a piece of utility, you probably shouldn't be. We've talked about utility a lot already, but let's talk about how you should use it as a round progresses. At the start of a round, use some utility to get some map control, help your team push a site, or to delay an enemy push. Examples of this are smoking off a choke point, using Omen's flash down a corridor, or using a one-way smoke. Towards the middle of a round, you should be proactive of your team's movements. Be ready at any moment to use utility for your team. If your team's defaulting, you should be ready to help your team anywhere. You can initiate a play with your team using your utility as well. One of my favorites is to take Garage on Haven. Now, once we get towards the end of the round, we're likely going to be in a post-plant or a retake situation. Try to make use of all utility you have in these scenarios, because dying with utility is the last thing you want. Now, we've gone over how to position yourself on controller slightly, but let's take a deeper dive. Being the first point of contact on your team is something you should avoid. You need to simply just survive and get your utility out there. Crossfiring with teammates is powerful in most setups. Just avoid being first contact. Now, let's say you're in a clutch situation as a controller. What should you do? First, take into account the utility you have. If you have any utility to use, you need to use it to cut an angle off and isolate a gunfight. Since isolating gunfights in a 1 versus X situation is usually the key to winning it. If you're in a retake, smoking off the bomb is good. If you tap the bomb in a smoke, the enemy has one play, and that's to push your smoke. These are just a couple of options though. As controller, you have the most outplay potential in a 1 versus X out of any other role. Learning how to play controller can take some time, but in this guide, we've gone through all of the fundamentals of it, from what the role entails to how to use your utility properly, positioning, how to communicate, and even how to clutch, all in under 10 minutes. So now that you understand controller and how to make the most out of the role, it's time to get in the game and use everything you learned to carry your way through the ranks. And if you feel like we missed anything, or you have your own tips for controllers, be sure to let us know down in the comments below. This is just a glimpse of what we have to offer though. Over at SkillCapped, we've got you covered with dozens of tailor-made courses that will teach you everything you need to know about climbing in Valorant. We'll teach you everything you need to know about mastering your mechanics so that you can start playing at an immortal level in no time. Along with this, we also upload tons of VOD reviews each week that our coaches record from looking at players just like you. So rather than just paying for one $200 coaching session on another platform, you can get access to hundreds of sessions for just a few bucks. Not only that, but our coaches are also at the ready in our Discord to take a look at your gameplay and tell you exactly what your issues are, if by chance you don't find value from all the other things we offer on our site. Use the link below for a discount link for your purchase today. And other than that, we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.